my name is Colin Campbell. I'm the Deputy Principal at the International School of Dusseldorf. We're a school of about just over 1,000 students. We're a continuum school. We do PYP, MYP and DP. Our students come from many different nationalities, the largest groupings being German, American, British, Dutch, Scandinavian and Japanese. There is 3 types of mandatory reflection sessions. There is one right at the beginning, one in the middle, which is the interim reflection session, and one at the end, which is the viva voce. In the initial session, the student will be coming with their thoughts and their ideas, and the supervisor will be using those as the basis of the discussion. Will guide the student towards coming up with a sort of firm research question.
So you have a very broad topic with lots of potential options. How are you going to create a workable research question?
Well, I definitely think I have to go out and identify a specific time period that I feel is most prevalent in the decline of Detroit.
The role of the supervisor for the initial session is to help the student develop their own thinking, trying to draw out from the student their thinking, their ideas.
Well, what else, apart from the fact it could sit in, what other potential pitfalls could you see?
Well, I definitely think that another issue could be, with my personal connection, I could be biased towards the automotive companies.
Perhaps discuss possible roadblocks to the process that the student may not be aware of.
We often encourage students to produce things like mind maps around potential topics. They could even do a research proposal.
It helped me not sort of stray into different areas that I really should not stray into.
Tell me about how you began your research and began the process.
The reflection sessions, I think, are very important for the students. They have an opportunity to discuss their process with their supervisors, get some feedback, get ideas how they can move forward with this.
When you felt those moments where you were feeling overwhelmed, how did you cope with them? What was your strategy for getting past them?
Are there any new questions that you hadn't anticipated when you set out to do this research? Is there anything new emerging from what you've seen so far?
Well, this is it's important that the supervisors guide them, because the students are in the middle of actually a very new and very complex and very large process, and they need support to take them to places so they can reach their potential.
Reflection is not just about looking back, it's also about thinking about the future. The looking back itself really is just a way of informing what you're going to do in the future.
I might have to go back and look for more information, but just leave that aside for now.
Right. I think that was a successful strategy ultimately. Sometimes one direction is a bit frustrating, and to put that material aside and look at another source or in another direction is actually a very effective way of going around it.
So are you happy with the data you've collected? Do you think it addresses your research question?
Well, if we look at my data, I have my graphs here for the length of the shoot. I was able to see my process and see my data that I collected a lot more critically.
How has your understanding about that topic, about the portrayal of womanhood, how has it developed?
I learned that there was a lot more change in womanhood between early 1900s and now.
I was able to notice what my next step was and look back at what I've done, and it kind of also gave me confidence because I've seen that I've come so far.
But they're also related to the assessment of the essay, in fact, because after the reflection sessions and the interim session, they will have to fill out the RPPF form.
Well, it sounds like you have a clear idea of what your next steps are, and also look how far you've come.
Well, a check-in session is not formal. It tends to be of a shorter duration, and it is focused on particular issues which are generally raised by the students themselves.
I bring in other theories from different psychologists. Is that if they're relevant enough to my research question, is it okay to include that, or is that going off topic a bit?
No, that works very, very well, especially if you're trying to talk about this balance. You've asked before about how do you consider, for example, to what extent, how do you make sure you're doing that? And that's exactly what you're doing. You're looking at evidence from different areas.
Check-in sessions are totally unrelated to the final assessment of the essay. Often the students have questions which can be answered quite specifically by the supervisor or guided quite specifically by the supervisor.
I know that other subjects they have a lot of sources to back it up, but I pretty much only have texts I'm analysing. I was wondering if that's enough.
Well, the first thing to reassure you is there isn't a sort of set number of sources.
I think it's a good way to get really direct questions in, and it doesn't take a lot of time, so you're really just there to know what to do next.
Throughout my essay, I use the same source a couple of times. Should I refer back to that each time when I've used it and cite it, or?
You're going to cite it each time. So each time that you refer back to it, or you are making reference to it, you will cite it. It's completely okay to do that. One of the issues that sometimes comes up with the reflection sessions is that students feel like they're on stage, whereas the check-ins allow the students to feel a little more relaxed, like they can ask just about any question.
I can go in a free period, I can go in at lunch, I can go in after school really quickly, and it can keep me on track. And it's good to balance out the big meetings with these sort of smaller meetings and help me get to a stage where I can actually really discuss my essay in depth.
I think the main element here is reflection, the power of reflection to aid a learning process. If students learn how to reflect effectively for themselves, if they're guided in this process, this is a major skill for them to take with them in the next phase of their life, at university, in the workplace.